back into the culture, but that question has not been answered.
The Honourable Shane Jones.
Tēnā koe, sir. In the characteristic spirit of positive contributions which defines me, I want to direct our attention, sir, to the question as to whether or not Maori TV, with the change, sir, in the Maori language, te reo me ngā tikanga, te reo me ona tikanga, is it a Trojan horse, sir, where the station will no longer be a bastion of quality language and a prestigious place to go to help people improve their language? Now, sir, I know that the Mahu Tonga report, which I thought, sir, not unlike the Pai report to do with Te Reo Māori, had content inversely related to cost and had quality inversely related to quantity. They were, by and large, sir, reports that did not advance the Māori language in any practical way. And I'd love to hear Dr. Sharples, our Minister of Māori Affairs, sir, stand and provide some account of that. But there is a point at which the underlying raison d'etre, the underlying kaupapa, purpose of the station needs to be tied to something that is a legacy. Is this, sir, an opportunity for it to broaden and provide more shows such as those created or narrated by Sir Howard Morrison's son? I've got nothing in particular against that whānau or Matua Parkinson, other than his lapse of smoking dope. But then half of Kaitaia does it. I don't judge him for that either. However, sir, I would say that if we're going to maintain as a special position of power and influence for our Māori TV station, insofar as it can be a public television provider, let it not, sir, be at the cost of good quality language. Let it not, sir, be at the cost of a bastion for those as the language stops being used in the way perhaps it was in our grandmother's time, and indeed, sir, in my colleague Tauhenare's grandparents' time. New avenues are required, but, sir, it's important that new students can find in an accessible way, not reading some ancient dictionary, Tregear, I think, wrote a Māori language dictionary, etc. Quite apart from that famous Anglican who ended up with too much Ngāti Porou land. The Williams, that might have more to do with the Ngāti Porou than the Williams in the Anglican Church. That's another matter, sir. That's another matter. But I would say that we must not compromise on te pūkenga, te maruwehi, me te atata o te reo Māori, tōna ātākua. Now, sir, if they are going to make programs that are broader than Te Reo Māori, then it's important that it's done in such a way that it actually improves the consciousness. Now, I am tempted to talk about the Minister's year-long slumber, but that would be unbecoming. But, sir, if the consciousness of broader New Zealand society is such that the language becomes regarded as something that doesn't deserve to be sneered at, eventually turns into a part of compulsory study in all New Zealand schools, just as we have to learn geography in terms of social studies. I'd like to think, sir, that every kid learns civics compulsory. And if it isn't happening, then help's on the way. Certainly will be in a year or two. And so as a part of a robust social studies program, that New Zealand's first language, our native language, Te Reo Māori, be embedded there. But for that to happen, sir, society obviously has to lose a lot of its, not so much fear, but sense that the language is worthless. Now, sir, I fear by those critics looking at the Minister, they might conclude that the language is worthless. The language is not worthless. There may be some problems, sir, with the worth of the Minister, but the language is not worthless. And I don't think it's fair that we've sat through this debate and we haven't really heard a great deal, and that's fine. I mean, there are a host of other ministers. Indeed, there were some on our sides. We didn't feel obliged from time to contribute. But let's not compromise the language. let's ensure that it provides a basis for improving our sense, Mr. Chair,
Honourable Shane Jones.
our sense of ownership, our sense of place in terms of the language being an indelible feature of broad New Zealand civic culture, without Māori feeling that they're being alienated from their language, etc., sir. So the other thing I'd like to remind us is that we had a great debate, and it is there, sir, in terms of the management rights in the bill, and then, sir, there is an issue as to whether or not Te Pūtahi Pāho may be captured and decide that Māori TV is not deserving of the entirety of the spectrum, and that other pursuits, there may be the occasional erratic filmmaker who may come up with a bright scheme from out of the sort of Māori filmmaking ether and want to get some of that spectrum for a different television purpose. I would counsel and warn against that, sir. I think it's important, just as under the current minister we've watched Māori radio wither on the vine. There's no longer any funding for the training, and these are people that can crisscross from Te Irirangi Māori to Te Pauaka Māori. They can crisscross, sir, from Māori radio to Māori TV and create a bigger cadre of bilingual, sophisticated broadcasters, reporters, and I think it's really disappointing, sir, that there is some scope that this waka kiho, this ghost ship, will provide the chance for viral activity. People thinking that by atomising Māori effort that somehow the kaupapa is going to get stronger, and I find very little evidence that that's the case. Now, we have seen, sir, in relation to Te Irirangi Māori radio, that the reason that it's withered is that often it lacks collective effort. And if you have too many organisations pulling in too many different directions, and the minister might say there's a safeguard there, that any major changes to spectrum allocation or spectrum use has to have the acquiescence or the statutory consent of the relevant ministers. And in order for those mortgages to be entered into, or other purposes, the minister has to buy into it. So that's a safeguard, but a number of Māori will see that as patronising. A number of Māori will see that as diametrically opposed to the tino rangatiratanga rhetoric which defined the Māori Party when it was at its best. Unfortunately, sir, much drooping has taken place since that point in time. Yes. Now, the voters, sir, will have this final say in that matter, but when we actually focus in respect of the usage of the spectrum, let's ensure, sir, and the Minister perhaps might provide us with some reassurance, that Te Pūtahi Pāho will not be a nest of instability that then weakens the ability of the major Māori language TV provider. There is some mahi happening in TV1, but, sir, most of Māori, I think, look in terms of language activists and those of us wanting to promote a greater level of knowledge and consciousness about our heritage in Māori to Māori TV. And let's not create a situation where that waka is weakened because of conflicting agendas. And I suspect, sir, that's what's blighted their attempt to date to create, to find a person to be the new CEO. Too many agendas, too many people fighting each other. And of course we've seen this, sir, with Hone Harawira having left the Māori Party and Tariana Turia not sure if she's going to stay or go. So this is a feature, unfortunately, of certain aspects of that type of political creed. But that's their business, sir. And our business today as parliamentarians is to ensure that this bill does not provide an opportunity for people with so many conflicting agendas. It weakens the resolve of the board. It's actually started to happen, so they can't even find a chief executive officer, which is actually an indictment on the chair of the board. But that didn't seem to make any difference when she was a minister. It's unlikely to make any impact on her now she's not a minister. And, you know, so when Māori TV do make programs that have broader appeal, they should make a program about creatures that hibernate. Occasionally, sir, they're prodded out of their slumber into a level of consciousness.
Who would star on that?
I can think of someone who will be unemployed at the end of next year, out of politics, who may actually star in that program. And indeed, Georgina Te Heuheu, sir, could actually star in that at the moment, given the failure to find a CEO and the inability to bring what seems to be conflict to a head. So this is not good for Maori TV. We stand with Maori TV in the sense that we want it to go on and be strong. Kia ora tātou.
No, Kia ora,
Kia ora, Mr.